I am Lisa Robinson, United States Air Force.
I'm Stanley Wright, Petty Officer 2nd Class, U.S. Navy.
Delma Chapa, U.S. Army.
My name is Phyllis Cunningham, and I am a United States Army veteran.
And I am a veteran.
I am a veteran.
I am a veteran.
Veterans Day to me means reflecting on all the men and women who answered our nation's call, those that made the commitment and sacrifice to ensure our country's freedoms.
Veterans Day also represents the day that America gets to tell every man and woman who have served these great United States, thank you for services rendered.
Veterans Day for me is an opportunity to celebrate the individuals that have come before and are currently serving. It not only gives us an opportunity to celebrate and honor them for their service, it also gives us an opportunity to shed some light on all the things they do for our country.
Veterans Day to me is a day where we honor, celebrate, and thank all persons who have honorably served in the armed forces during peacetime and war. On this day, we acknowledge those sacrifices and contributions to our nation.
And I am a veteran.
I'm a veteran.
And I'm a veteran.
And I'm a veteran.
Veterans Day to me is a time of reflection.
Veterans Day means to me pride in the men and women who came before me.
Celebrating the 45 years that myself, my husband, and my son has given to supporting, defending, and serving this great nation of ours.
Veterans Day to me means that we honor and recognize all of those who have served and are serving in our United States Armed Forces. It's a day that we recognize the selfless service and the sacrifices that are made on behalf of the greater good of our United States of America.
Greetings, I'm Forrest Powell, and welcome to Alaska's 2020 Veterans Day event on video, as we pay tribute to Alaska's veterans and family members. Our sponsor for today is the Commissioner and Adjutant General of the Alaska National Guard, Major General Torrance Sachs. The video taken today was created by people practicing social distancing. It is my pleasure to introduce Alaska's Governor, Mike Dunleavy, for a short message, followed by Major General Torrance Sachs. Then, Verdi Bowen, Director of Alaska State Office of Veterans Affairs, will present the Governor's 2020 Veterans Advocacy Award.
Hello, Alaskans. Today we thank our veterans for their courageous sacrifices in defense of our great nation. For generations, Alaskans have answered the call of service at a higher rate than anywhere else in the country. I'm proud to stand alongside so many brave heroes, and I hope you'll join me in expressing our appreciation. In honor of our veterans, I'd like to take a moment to read today's proclamation. Whereas our nation was built upon the belief that all citizens are guaranteed the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and whereas the freedoms we enjoy and values we hold dear as Americans do not come without a price, our nation has experienced many conflicts, and we must take the time to express our sincere gratitude for the services of our veterans preserving our rights and liberties, in addition to fighting for the freedom of others. And whereas we celebrate our warriors on the 11th day of the 11th month in tribute to the temporary cessation of hostilities in 1918 at 11 a.m., when the Allies in Germany signed the armistice, which would end World War I. 20 years later, this day became federally recognized as a holiday to celebrate all veterans from all wars. And whereas we honor all soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and women, National Guards members, and reservists who have served and are serving the United States Armed Forces. And whereas we are eternally indebted to our veterans for their remarkable and valiant service to the United States of America, and we will never forget their selfless allegiance and readiness to put their lives on the line to defend the freedoms of our democracy. And whereas on Veterans Day, we reflect on the immeasurable burdens endured by so few in the defense of so many, and dedicate ourselves to supporting those who have served our nation and the families who stood alongside them, including those who are still serving today and will serve in the future. Now therefore, I, Mike Dunleavy, Governor of the great state of Alaska, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2020 as Veterans and Remembrance Day in Alaska, and call upon all Alaskans to honor our veterans for their service by participating in appropriate ceremonies and expressions of gratitude, encourage employers to provide job opportunities for those who serve, and applaud the incredible bravery of our veterans and members of the United States Armed Forces. On behalf of all Alaskans, I want to thank all of our veterans as we celebrate this day.
All right, how many folks here were veterans of Desert Shield, Desert Storm? Anybody out there? Okay, just a couple. I think that means I'm the old head because I'm still in the military, and yes, I was a veteran of that time in our nation's history. But 1990, as you heard, I was enlisted, junior enlisted in the Army, and my unit had not deployed en masse since World War II. Not a single person outside the Vietnam veterans had deployed at all. So I remember thinking, those guys are the old heads, how things have changed. Time gives you perspective. My unit deployed, and we got over there, and my unit was set up primarily for EPWs, enemy prisoners of war. And we saw a lot of blast wounds, as you might expect. So one day in particular, extremely busy. A lot of blood, and I remember the supervisor came in and said, "There's a soldier, he's not expected to live, get ready." That's never a good way to start out any operation. So my job was to pass the instruments to the doctors and make sure to sew up afterwards, depending how busy it was on a given operation. So this soldier came in, and what had happened, I don't know if he was being pursued, but he was going over some really rough terrain in his Humvee. And on his belt, he had a grenade. He went over a dune, he went up, the grenade went up, and the grenade got hooked on the seat belt. So the pin popped out. At no range, the entire backside of the soldier was blown away. There is no logical reason this soldier should have been alive, none at all. So he gets into our operating room, and I never even caught his name, but I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is pretty bad. So we did everything we could, and the miracle continued. At least through that operation, the soldier did make it through, and the goal was to get him to Germany that night. The reason I bring that up, that was really the first time I completely internalized that freedom does come at a cost. I went back to my barracks that night, I thought about the soldier, and I really did think about all the people who had gone before me and the sacrifices that they had made. And it's been seared into my being ever since. As I said, I don't remember his name, but I say a prayer for him from time to time, and I hope wherever he is, he's happy. So, now, the conflict ended, and we went back to the States. My unit rotated back, and I was a part-timer, so I come up from a small town called Omak, Washington. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, Okanagan County, very close to Canada. And I was supposed to speak to the Lions Club because they asked me to say something. Again, I was a very young man. I had no idea what to say. But before I went there to speak, I was dropping off my 214, that's the discharge form, at the courthouse. And there is a monument there, and it's pictured on this slide. I had been by it time and time again, and just never really noticed it. I stopped this time, and I really took a look at it. It was all the young men who had died in World War I. I read every single name, slowly. And I remember thinking, I wonder what they look like. What did they want to do for a career? What were their hopes, their dreams? Did they want to get married and have kids? And that's really when it connected for me, emotionally and spiritually. We would not be where we are today if not for those who have gone before us. So getting back to World War I, the numbers were just staggering. As far as the overarching numbers, 10 million military dead, 20 million injured. On the civilian side, 7 million dead, countless injured. That's where the Treaty of Versailles and also where Veterans Day, previously Armistice Day, originated. But that's why we're here today, to honor all veterans, those that gave the ultimate sacrifice, and all those, whether it's one tour or a retirement. And again, there's many, many here in the audience, so thank you for what you have done. Now, one veteran I want to highlight in particular is Lance Saijon. Now, if you're a member of the Air Force, you know his story. I knew his story, absolutely. But I went to a conference a couple years ago, and I heard his sister, pictured on the slide, talk. Her name is Janine. It was no longer a history lesson. It was a sister lovingly talking about her brother and the sacrifices that he had made. So just a quick history on him. In 1967, November 9th to be exact, his plane was shot down. It really is a miracle that he wasn't captured on the spot. Enemy converged, and he had a horrible head injury, his mangled hand, and also just multiple fractures in his leg. He escaped that day and went for another 45 days. He couldn't walk, he couldn't even crawl. The only way he could move is to push himself backwards on one leg. Did that for 45 days with very little food or water. He was eventually captured on Christmas Day, and at this point, extremely emaciated, very thin. But somehow he overpowered the guards and he got out again. But this escape was very short-lived. It was only about 4 days. So from there, he was captured again, as I said, and tortured repeatedly over the next months, eventually dying in 1968. But just to show how much he served with honor and what he did over and over, he was always asked a question for information, and he would say, "I can't. It's against the code." He certainly did serve with honor. Now, as far as the Vietnam veterans are concerned, I know we have a couple here in the audience. Representative Shaw, just talked to him before the ceremony. He's got 2 tours. I'm sure there are other Vietnam vets here in the audience. And one thing I always say every chance I get, welcome home, and you did serve with honor. Welcome home. But as far as folks that have gone to the memorial, it really is an awe-inspiring sight. But it's also cathartic. For those that have been there, people go every day. They leave a memento, they say goodbye, they say thank you, they cry, and they pray. But one thing I want to point out is the 3 soldiers there as well. If you have never seen them, next time you go, take a moment to look at them. Look into their eyes, because they're battle weary, but they're focused. And as far as the hand on one of the soldiers, if you go to the rear of the soldiers, literally one hand is on the back of the soldiers. I literally have your back. It's safe to sleep tonight. I've got the watch. Now, I think at the macro level, every person who's served in the military understands what we do for freedom. Absolutely. But on the personal level, we do what we do for the man or the woman to our right or to our left. Why? Because they would do it for us. That is the essence of teamwork. That is what we do within the military. That is what veterans do, and that's why there's so many here today. You're still part of that team. And to really encapsulate what the military does, there was a poem written years ago. It's called "It is the Soldier." And just a couple of lines from that. It is the soldier, not the reporter, that gives you freedom of the press. It is the soldier, not the poet, that gives you freedom of speech. It is the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves underneath the flag, and who's draped by the flag. Soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardsman, it's all the same team, just different positions. Today we honor all veterans in thought and word, but I think President Kennedy had it right. The ultimate compliment is to do that, but to live those words out. And that is our sincere hope today. So again, thank you to all the veterans here in the audience. Thank you all for coming, and God bless.
Hello, I want to thank you this Veterans Day for allowing us to honor you through this video production. I know that things have changed this year and we cannot meet one-on-one, but this is the best way that we can reach out to each and every one of you. And as you think about today, what Veterans Day means to you, I want you to think about all those interesting things that occurred while you were in the service. You know, there's so much stuff that happened in your either long or short service that you can share with those around you. And mostly the funny stuff. You know, many times we have different stories that we can utilize to get people to understand what it was like to be in the military. You know, from push-ups in the morning, from running in the afternoon. You have all of these different things that you can come up with. Or your favorite or not so favorite first sergeant or commander. That is something you can share. So my challenge to you is to take the time, think about those events that shaped your life and share those with your neighbors and friends and your family. For me, for an example that I'll give you is that when I was deployed, I went into a dining facility or a chow hall, depending on what branch of the service you're in. And as I walked in there, I saw all of the people sitting around at the tables drinking coffee. Well, I was hungry, so I decided that I would just run over and get me a bowl of macaroni and cheese. It was sitting there. Oh, it looked wonderfully. But when I sat down, the people at the table sort of smiled and they said, "You must be new." and they said the coffee was safe. Well, after my first bite, I understood the coffee was safe. The macaroni and cheese looked good, but man, it was horrible. Those are the kind of things I encourage you to share with your family. Just reach inside and find those beautiful stories that you can share with each and every person, especially those people around you. The next thing I want to talk about is that today, being Veterans Day, is a special time for each one of you to open up, because if something happens to you and you're unable to tell this story anymore, we can't construct them. Only person that construct these stories is you. Now today we get the opportunity to honor someone very special. We have an individual that continuously held up the core value of selflessness. And you know, the unique piece about that is I've known him for many years, and he constantly is working and striving to provide services to veterans all over the state. And you know, sometimes you don't know how far you reach until you get to the far corners of the state and you have people talk to you about this individual. And as I introduce this person, I'll introduce him this way. I was in Delta Junction and an individual came up to me and asked me if I knew the rodeo clown that had helped him get his disability. And I thought, oh, you must be speaking about James Hastings, who lives in Wasilla. How did you get to meet him? The individual had met James at a rodeo in Kenai and was able to connect his benefits through that time with James. Now, James reaches people throughout the state, no matter where he's at, whether it's jobs, whether it's education pieces, whether it's advancement in career. But this year, the Governor's Veterans Advocate of the Year is James Hastings of Wasilla.
To me, it's an extreme honor to be recognized as recipient of the 2020 Veterans Advocacy Award. It's not something that I've ever strove for or any purpose whatsoever behind doing anything that I do individually or collectively with a group of great other veterans. Servant leadership is one of the most important things that we can offer to our country, and I'm just honored and proud to be able to continue to do that beyond my military service. So on behalf of all of my compatriots and my family and myself, I appreciate the recognition, and it is truly an honor.
Thank you all for joining us today for honoring our veterans and all who have served.